Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we're going to unbox something because, hey, the algorithm loves unboxings. You guys love unboxings. Actually, we are going to do a review and check this out, but this is a brand new kit from Diamond Press. And Diamond Press is a craft company. They do like die cutting, stamping, that sort of thing, card making, paper crafting supplies. And they are getting into the watercolor world. So they reached out to me and said, you know, you do a lot of watercolor. Would you have a look at this and tell us what you think? So let's take a look. This did come boxed in a larger box. It was just brown like this, but just for protection. So let's take a look. Let's see. This looks like our watercolor palette. I think we've seen these tins before, but I don't want to make any assumptions because you know what happens when we assume, don't you? Ah, it is very well wrapped, which is nice. I don't know exactly the price of this. It will be unveiled on Home Shopping Network, but I don't think it's terribly expensive. It is definitely like a beginner grade product. So we've got a swatch card here. It's got the same thing printed on each side. I'm not sure why it's printed on double sides for that. Maybe that was a mistake. And we got a watercolor. Well, it looks like a watercolor paper. It's a textured paper anyway, swatch. It's not a bright white though. If you look at that, that's closer to white. Let me see. Do I have something else that's white? This paper towels. Let's see. So it's not really a bright white. It's kind of a grayish color card. That's an interesting choice. We've got a palette here, which that's handy. And then we've got some paints. So what I think I'm going to do is go ahead and these are just in a plastic tray. So I'm just going to go ahead and spray them with my sprayer here, and then we can swatch them out and see how they do. These look like ones I've used before, but like I said, I don't want to be presumptuous. I'm going to add drops of water onto the thing there, and we can actually fill up our water brush while we're at it. Metallics always need a little bit more. It looks like there's metallics down here as well, doesn't it? Don't those kind of look like they're metallics? Yeah, so it's got those metallics and it's got some other metallics here. Maybe those are exactly, it's the same thing written on this paper. But maybe I'll swatch the other colors here on this as well, maybe off to the side or something. All right, let's fill up the water brush. In case you are watching this because you just bought this kit and you're thinking about buying it and you want to know a little bit more about it, water brushes unscrew the opposite way. And then you can fill them up under the sink, under the faucet. I like to use like a little squeezy bottle. I just recycled these ones that hair color come in, or I'll recycle the ones that like the flavors that you can put in your water bottle come in, those sugar-free flavors. I saved those. All right, we're gonna set this aside. These look to me like some other paints I've used. So we'll see. We'll see. I'll set that aside and let those percolate a bit. You can save this stuff here if you like to do bookbinding. I just posted a tutorial on how to make your own sketchbook, and I use a piece of foam like this to poke my holes. So very handy to hang on to a piece of that. And now we've got this smaller box. So let's take a look in here and see what we have. We've got a little pamphlet on the watercolor kit. Oh, it shows you how to do your water brush, so that's handy. And it gives you some other information about the other products. I don't want to have spoilers, so I'm just going to open this up and see. Oh, it is very efficient use of space in that box. Let's see what we have here. This looks like it might be a carry bag. Oh yeah, so we've got a bag with a mesh pocket in the front. That's kind of cute. The zipper slides well. I don't see any loose threads. It looks like it's pretty well made. And it's kind of like a waterproofy material, so I guess if you're throwing some, well, you really wouldn't want to put your wet stuff in here, but well, I guess if your palette was kind of drippy, it probably wouldn't leak out of the bag, but it feels kind of like a waterproof bag with a mesh pocket in the front. We have some brushes here. Let's take a look at those. Make something great, it says on them. Oh my goodness, I don't want to release. Getting caught on a little sticky flap on the bottom. And let's see if we can tell what those brushes are made out of. I'm just going to get my water here. You know what, I'm just going to pour some of this right in there because I'll just go fill that up later. Let's set these in here for a second, let them soften up. We have got a black non-smudge ink by Diamond Press. I'm not familiar with any of their products. I've never used their products before, so we will be no odor to that. So we will be learning together. And then it looks like a pack of watercolor paper in both black and white. This watercolor paper does not look like typical watercolor paper. It kind of looks like that Gen Crafts I used once. It was kind of gray. Kind of like sometimes the Royal Nightingale watercolor paper will have the same texture to it. And this kind of looks like cardstock. So I'm not sure how this is going to behave, but we'll give it a shot. We'll give it a try. And then we have some rubber stamps, some clear stamps. So I wonder if there's a block in this kit. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see if it comes with a block or if you'll need to supply that on your own. This is geared towards crafters, like paper crafters, so they probably would already have a block. And they might just be new to watercolor. So we've got, I'm just going to take a piece of that watercolor paper. Sending you love, sending you a bouquet of good wishes, blessed to have a friend like you, and then we've got a couple flower motifs. Those are pretty. They're all, looks to be line artwork, so you'd probably stamp it with the waterproof ink pad, and then you would watercolor it. Thankful for you. We've got a pumpkin, like a fall motif. We've got a rose, a hummingbird, and sunflowers. Then we've got wishing you a happy day, another bird. We've got a wreath, and we've got some butterflies. All right, so we've got some pretty basic stamps there, all occasion type things. And then let's take a look at this package here. Ooh, get into this. All right, let's see. We have got a silicone, it feels like silicone. I'm assuming a silicone mat to protect your workspace. All right, look at that. This looks pretty good. One more thing I saw in the box that I missed before was this water brush that's full of like sparkle medium, I believe. So let's see if I can get into this. It looks like it's in like an acrylic box, but it's also inside a, what is this? Oh, it's like, maybe we're supposed to keep that. It's got like a little brush holder. It's yeah, it's like some kind of like Wink of Stella stuff. That's kind of interesting. I've never seen a little holder like that. I guess it's probably so you keep it separate. Interesting. Yeah, all right. So I thought it'd be good to test some stamps and then we'll do some swatching. So let's get out 2 of these pieces of paper. I'm going to do one on the right side and one on the wrong side because generally when you're stamping you want a smoother surface. I have, I grabbed a couple stamp blocks and let's see, what do I want to stamp? What would be the most fun to watercolor? Let's do the wreath. That wreath is kind of cute. Let's see how that does. And that's got a lot of detail, so I'm going to stamp it on the smoother paper. Hopefully my block is big enough for that. I think I have one big enough. There we go. My apologies if I lean in front of the camera and you see my messy hair. I am getting it cut today. I've had enough. Oh, it's taking the ink all right, I think. Now this does feel like just a inexpensive silicone stamp. So let's stamp that and see how that does. I'm stamping it right on the silicone mat that came in the kit because I figured that's probably a good use for it. It was just enough squish. Got some crap in the middle, unfortunately. Let's do one of the smaller ones. Let's do the pumpkins here. At least we can test to see if the ink truly is waterproof. Oh, you know what? This kind of had an air bubble under it. That's why it got dark in the center. Making a mess. This paper, I don't have super high hopes for the paper. Oh, that stamped out fine on the textured side, so maybe we'll do this again. Flip that around and do that on the textured side. Let me stick it to the block though. Let me get that, make sure that center is really sticking down there so we don't get the air bubble effect. I'll try not to add any ink to the middle. Okay. Oh, there we go. Actually, that stamped pretty good. Okay, we'll let those dry. While those are drying, we can do some swatching. Bring our paints back, and let's take the swatch card and see how this does. And that would be for these guys here. Oh, it's nice and opaque on the black. That's good. Let's see how this brush will do. Not really a fine tip. We might want to use the other brushes for that. This is actually easy to squeeze, which is nice. Oh, that's a pretty gold. Chameleon gold, chameleon pink. Now that usually means that it will like shift. Chameleon green. All right, I'm impressed with these. Chameleon turquoise. And chameleon dark blue. Oh, very reflective. I'm impressed with that. Let's see how the other brushes do. So this is the flat. We're seeing how it holds a stroke, carries plenty of paint. Let's see how the bigger round does. Now this got a bit of the tip does not look very, very pointy. Yeah, the tip kind of splaying apart. Maybe it'll be all right. And then the tiny one here. Let's try the tiny one. Pick up some of that water there. Let's do this color here. It's got quite a long hair sticking out. It does have a few hairs sticking out, but they could probably get the job done. All right, there's our colors. We'll have to let them dry before we can really see what we have there, but that looks pretty good. Now let's look at the regular basic colors here. I'm debating what I want to swatch them with. I think I'll use the flat brush actually. And I did pre-spray these. I think I'm gonna need an extra cup of water. I gotta move my whole table is discombobulated right now. We in camera, oops. It's hard to really tell much about the paper, but at least the strokes aren't feathering on it. They seem pretty vibrant. But I do see a little bit of, it looks like a little bit of that kind of sedimentary chalkiness that the paints that come in these tins like this often display. But will it be an issue for the market that it's designed for? Will it be potentially a benefit for using on like cardstock and other papers that are not necessarily sized for watercolor? Because that is something that I will say the cheaper paints excel at, is that they do better on unsized paper. I'm not going to put these through quite the paces I would a professional watercolor, just because they're not gonna be able to perform at that level. Red tones are kind of gritty. That does not look like a raw sienna to me. You can kind of see the graininess on the surface of the paints. You can see the optical brighteners there, how it got really light when we added water. Same here. And you can kind of see it chunking up on the brush there. And now we're getting into some shimmer colors, which I think I'll I need a black paper for that, but I can't flip the other one over because it's still wet. Hold on. Alright, we're going to swatch the shimmery colors. I just grabbed some black mixed media paper. So red shimmer. And we have it on the black. Orange shimmer. Now these are probably going to be a little bit more pearly than actual metallics, but you do have the other metallics in the set. Now I'm probably not going to be as hard on this as I would other paints, just because I think the price point isn't going to be too high on these, and they are meant kind of as part of a craft kit for stampers to kind of get into the craft. So because the kit comes with other stuff that's reusable, and you're not just paying, you know, whatever it is, maybe it's going to be $45 or something just for the paint, you know, I got to consider those other things that are going to come in the kit as well. These paints feel very thirsty. I really want to soak up that that water. These do feel like other paints I've used that come in these tins that look like this and that kind of ice cube tray packaging. And they're not my favorite. I think I maybe kept one set that came like that, just for kind of brush lettering, because that thicker paint is kind of good for that. I don't do a lot of that, but if I wanted to, it's nice to have a set that I can use that for. That's a pretty color though. And these are opaque enough that if you wanted to do brush lettering with them on a dark surface, you could. So I don't think these are going to be marketed to my typical viewers of like watercolor tutorials, more of like the stamping community. That's a pretty color. That's called mauve shimmer, but it looks like it looks more like a copper to me. It's pretty silver. A light bronze. Ooh, that's a pretty color. You lose a lot of the bronze on the black paper though. It looks more just kind of tan. Alright. let's set those aside. I would let that open to dry so you don't end up getting mold or anything. I'm just going to set it over to the side for a second. Let's look at our first swatch that's drying. That one's staying really nice and reflective. These are not as vibrant as those. Those have much more flash and glitter to them. And then, but on white, they're nice on white, so I think this is probably why they went with this type of paint, because it's going to show up on white pretty well. It's quite translucent. It didn't even really cover up the lines on those pastel shades, which is going to be good for stampers. Yeah, we'll let these dry, and then we'll take another look at them, and then we'll also, well, we could probably actually color our little images here right now. This mat has little brush rests. That's kind of nice, actually. I like that. I like the mat quite a bit. It's kind of nice. All right, so let's paint our little pumpkins here. Let's see how this does. I guess I don't need to paint both of them. We can just do one, and that'll give you a good idea. I think I'm going to start by wetting this area. See how this does on wet and wet. I've got to give this a trim. That hair hanging off the end is going to drive me nuts. So that's not great. You shouldn't have to be doing surgery on your brushes. Let's start with some yellow in the center, kind of the highlight area. Not a lot of movement here, but it might be down to the paper as much as the paint. Shading. I think the paper is going to be fine for this technique, for these products, actually. I was skeptical, but I think it's going to work for this. I'm going to add a little bit of that bronze. Maybe a little bit of brown. I think you might want to upgrade the brushes, though. The brushes are not great. I'm not loving the greens, but I could take this bright green. Where's my mixing tray? Take the bright green, and I can mix it with a little bit of yellow, maybe a little touch of orange, to make it a little bit more olivey. And paint. Yeah, I mean, the paint's not feathering on this. So I think it's going to be all right. Doesn't have a lot of flow, but I think that, I mean, that could be this paper. I'm not loving the brushes, but I'm probably pickier than most. The paint seems to be transparent enough that you can still see your stamping lines. I don't really like coloring small images. I think it's going to do the trick. I think it's going to do what it claims it can do. Yeah, I think it's just going to come down to whether you like the designs in the kit or not, and if you want this set of watercolors. They're not the highest quality watercolors, but I don't think they're awful. They're vibrant. I wouldn't want to do a painting with them. Oh, and the brush is really, I mean, you can get some control with it. I don't know. And I could see here the chalkiness in the paint. Okay, so honestly, I think for an all-in-one kit, to get somebody used to watercoloring or stamping and watercoloring, I think it's fine. I think these paints are going to do all right on cardstock and other papers that aren't really well sized. As far as learning how to watercolor paint with this, you certainly can, but I think that you would be better off with other paints. The matte in here is pretty cool. It's not ideal for mixing on because it's teal instead of white, but you do get a mixing tray. I think it's all right. I think if the price is under 50 bucks, it's, you know, it's fine. I wouldn't go out of my way for these watercolors, but it's kind of just, it's an overall, beginner introductory kit for stamping and watercoloring. The stuff's going to work fine. The quality isn't going to blow your socks off or anything, but it'll give you an idea of whether you want to pursue this craft a little bit more, I think. The stamp designs are pretty useful. They're very generic. You can use them for a lot of occasions. It's a fun kit. It's a fun kit. Somebody that wants to dabble in watercolor, I think they would like it just fine. Somebody that's serious about watercolor, though, or that's done a lot of watercoloring, it has watercolor supplies already, I think you'd be better off to skip it. Unless you like the stamp designs and you want this matte badly enough to kind of forfeit the paints and get it for that. Because I think if you've been watercolor painting, you're not going to be too thrilled with this, except for the metallics are actually pretty good. But that's my thoughts on this kit. It will come out on Home Shopping Network sometime in August, so I'll probably wait to post this until it's about to be released. I mean, it's up to you. There's no real big problems with anything. The paint just is not super high quality. Oh, you know what? We didn't try this. We didn't try the sparkly stuff. Let's try that. Ooh, gotta take out the little ring to activate it. Well, let's shake that up first. Oh, and it does come with this that you could refill. What's going on there? Why? What is that thing? Is that the shaker? Yep, that's just the bead to mix up the stuff. Why isn't that stuff coming through? Oh. It's like a little Winkestella. So I mean, that does add to the value of the kit. And then you could pick up some color with that. Oh, that's nice. Actually, that's quite pretty. Am I gonna change my mind on this? Actually, that's quite lovely. That does add some luminosity to these paints that weren't really there before, so that's kind of neat. I won't try to spatter it, but all right, let me wipe off that color. Let's see, I'll pick up maybe a purple. You do get a lot. Well, you know, that's kind of nice. You do get a lot in the kit. I like the matte. I like this sparkle pen. Not crazy about the paints, not crazy about the brushes, but I do like the metallic paints. The stamps are useful. I mean, as long as you know what you're getting and you're fine with it, I don't see a reason not to buy it if you're going to use the, you know, the stuff that comes with it. I don't think this is really being marketed towards somebody who's looking to seriously approach watercolor. So for what it is, coloring stamped images, I think it'll do the job. And working on cardstock, I think it'll be fine for that. Working on cheaper watercolor paper even. So, you know, well, the colors don't run together, which is what you kind of want with watercolor, but when you're doing something like this, you might not want the color to run together. You might want it to stay separate. I don't know, it's really up to you. What are you looking for, you know? What do you want to get out of your supplies? I like this pen. This pen is probably my favorite part about this. This and that and the matte. Well, you know, it's up to you. It's up to you. Only you know if it's worth it to you or not. And I hope this unboxing was helpful. I'm going to go through all the elements in this kit, kind of give them my 1 out of 10 rating, and kind of give an estimated value of each thing that I would perceive in this kit. And then you can decide when you see it for sale and you see how much it is, whether it's for you or not. So, stamp sets. I would say these would probably cost between $5 and $10 each. They're silicone stamps, but they're line artwork. They stamp well, and the designs are ones that you could use over and over again. They're very kind of basic: butterflies, birds, flowers, sentiments, just very very kind of generic stamps you could use for many different occasions. So I'd say all in all, these would probably be worth about $20 to $30. And I would give them like a 10 being like a really high quality photopolymer or wood mounted stamp, 1 being one of those plastic stamps that don't stamp very well. I'd give these like probably an 8. So they work well, not bad. You'll just need acrylic blocks for them if you don't have them. The next thing, this pen, the pen with the sparkle stuff in it. This really improved the gloss and transparency of the watercolors. It made them nice and shimmery. And I love Wink Estella, and I like this. This can be unscrewed, and you could pull it out, and you could add a little more water to it and get any leftover sparkle going. So it's a reusable product. You can use it as a water brush when it's empty. So I would give this a 10 out of 10. I really like it. The little holder is kind of interesting. I'm not sure if this was the cap that came to this or the cap that came to the water brush. I think it might have been the cap that came to the water brush. But yeah, I like this. I think this is really cool. I'm not sure about the little container that it came in, but I like it. 10 out of 10 for that. These brushes, they're not great. They didn't shed. So like a worst brush would be like a brush that shed, that didn't perform at all. Best brush would be like something you're using for fine art. It's really nice. I'd give this probably a 4 out of 10. They'll do the job, but I think you're going to get really frustrated doing like the tiny details with these brushes because they don't keep their point very well. They're just not great brushes. You're going to probably need to do a little bit of trimming on the end to make them perform well for you. So yeah, 3 or 4 out of 10 for those. The watercolor paper. If I was judging this just basically based on watercolor paper, I would be giving it like a 2 out of 10. But for stamping and for use with these paints, actually it performs pretty well. So in the context of this kit, I would give it like a 6 out of 10. It's just kind of like a pressed paper texture on it. It's fine for this. I definitely wouldn't want to do a watercolor painting on it, but for this, it's not bad. Oh, there's some black sheets in here too. This kind of like a cardstock that you could use the black. Oh, I should have grabbed this for swatching, but I didn't. Let's just do a quick little swatch on this and see how it performs. I bet it will do pretty well. Let me grab my water. I got some fresh water here. Let's see. Yeah, I mean it's fine. Stuff isn't feathering. Generally, metallic paint doesn't feather anyways because it's got more thickness to it. Let's try some of these guys here. And if you didn't like it to paint on it, you can always use it as a as like a black cardstock. remember to give your paints, especially the metallics, a spray before you go and use them. I wonder if any of these more, they're not going to really show up too well when they dry, I don't think. But if you did want to use colors, use your pastel colors on there and they'll show up a bit. So yeah, the paper I'd give a 5 or 6 out of 10 in the context of this kit. I wouldn't recommend it for like watercolor painting because I think it's going to be pretty frustrating. Waterproof ink pad. It was waterproof. It stamped really well. It's a fairly small size, but I'd give it a 9 out of 10. Actually, why not? Give it a 10 out of 10. It stamped fine. It didn't, I didn't over ink my images. It worked fine. It doesn't feel like there's a lot in there, but okay. So let's say if we're doing like 1 out of 10 would be like dollar store ink pad, 10 out of 10 would be like VersaFine, and I'd give it a 7 out of 10, I guess, in that sort of realm. But it's working fine. There's nothing wrong with it. The paints. The paints. I personally don't like this type of paint. I've tried it from other brands. Many brands will use the same companies to manufacture their stuff. I don't personally care for this type of paint. So the paint on its own, I would give it like a 3 out of 10. But in the context of working with rubber stamps on like this less expensive paper, actually it does pretty well. So I'd give it a 7 out of 10 in this context. But for this context only, I wouldn't recommend it if you're just looking for watercolors. Those metallics though are actually quite nice. They remind me of the Prima Marketing, their round metallic paints that they had. They're super reflective when dry. Yeah, I'd give the metallic paints a 10 out of 10 actually. They're really nice. And there is the sparkle pen on its own. That looks so much like Wink of Stella. It's so pretty. I really 10 out of 10 for that. So those and this 10 out of 10. Really nice. I would say these paints here would probably go for about 20 bucks in a tin, and those would probably go for, I don't know, I would say 10, so maybe 30 for the set. I'm just trying to, I'll have to add it all up at the end because I don't, so we said 30. Oh, Wink of Stella, what's that like? How much is a Wink of Stella? And it's not, you can refill a Wink of Stella actually. What are those, like $6? So we're at like 66, 70. You know, it's got the paper, I don't know, the papers, I don't know how I'd put a price on the paper. This mat is actually, I like it quite a bit. I'd probably give it a 9 out of 10. You've got a inch measuring grid there. You've got a place to set your small water cup to keep it from falling. You've got some areas to put paint, and it's got like a sloped well. The downside being that it's not white, so it's going to be hard to judge your watercolors if you're using it for mixing. But white silicone stains, so it really depends on what you like. It's got a little brush rest. I like this. I've seen comparable ones to this on Amazon for about, you know, I don't know, $10 to $13. So yeah, I would say it's probably around there. So, you know, if you had to buy all the little pieces separately, you'd probably spend around $70 or $80, and I bet it's going to be much less than that. So it's probably a pretty good deal. If, you know, if the quality is what you want. And this bag is actually really nice. I really don't know what the bag would go for, but you've got something to keep all your stuff in. That's kind of nice. And it seems to be well made. The zippers work really well, and they feel sturdy. They don't feel cheap. So I would give this a 10 out of 10, the little bag. So there you have it. I mean, it's up to you whether it's worth it to you. Like I said, I'm not sure exactly what the price is going to be. I'm betting it's going to be under $50. So for that, I would say it's a good value for money. But I also want to say that I personally don't like those watercolors. I've used those before, but given everything else that's in the set, I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's bad. I think this image is stamped really well, and I think you'd have a lot of fun with it if that's something that you want to do, if you're looking for a kit like this. I hope you found this helpful and gives you a little bit more insight to this if you were considering buying this on Home Shopping. I have bought things on the Home Shopping website before, so I can vouch for everything that I've bought. There has come fine. But there you go. I just wanted to give it a little bit more nuance because I felt like I was being pretty harsh on it, and some of the stuff in here is actually really nice. And I don't want to let my prejudice on these particular watercolors cloud my review, and I hope you found it useful. Again, thanks for watching, and until next time, happy crafting. Bye!